911, what's your emergency?
911, what's your emergency?
He's inside my house.
Someone's calling me, 911 mirror.
Some 911 calls are easy to forget. Others stay in your memory forever. Voices that don't sound human, locked rooms where no one should be, children calling from houses abandoned for decades, and hotel hallways where the doors seem to open to another time. But the most disturbing thing is that, in each case, there was always one thing in common: someone calling by name. Where do these voices come from? What lurks behind the walls, the mirrors, the telephone lines? And most importantly, what happens when the call doesn't come from a person, but from a place? Before answering, we need to go back to the stories that no one has been able to explain. There are things we hear at 911 dispatch that seem simple, common, even routine. But over time, you learn to identify a certain tone in people's voices. A tone that isn't panic, but something more primal, terror, cruel, one that comes from someone who saw or heard something that shouldn't exist. It was like this that night. I remember the exact time, 20:47. The entire city seemed silent. When the phone rang, the screen flashed with an address in an old neighborhood in the south of the city. A woman answered. Her voice was muffled, hoarse. "There's someone in my room?" That was it. But the way she said it, without emotion, as if the soul had left the body, chilled me to the bone. I asked her to confirm the address. She responded immediately, as if she'd already memorized it for situations like this. But there was something off in her voice. She wasn't desperate. She was Ravine. I asked where she was inside the house. "In the bathroom. I locked the door. I can't get out. He's there. He's waiting." She didn't say, "He broke in," nor "he broke in." She just said, "He's there." That mattered. Because, according to her, there was no noise. No broken glass, no forced doors. "Did you see anyone?" Silence. Then, something whispered. "I saw the shadow first, then the smell." I wrote that down. The smell. She said it was like rotting meat, stuffy, mixed with mold and damp wood. A smell that seemed to stick to the skin. I called the patrol car. 2 officers were less than 10 minutes away from the house. Meanwhile, I asked her to speak to me. Keep the line active. "Do you live alone?" "Yes, since he died." That sentence caught me off guard. "Who died?" Silence again. Heavy breathing. And then she said something I've never forgotten. "He used to lock me in my room when he got mad, always in my room. And now, he's the one who never leaves." The police arrived. I reported it in real time. The woman said she would hear footsteps, but the house was strangely quiet. The police forced their way in. Everything downstairs was in order. The living room was tidy. Dinner was half eaten in the kitchen. The lights were off except in the upstairs hallway. The woman remained in the bathroom, crying softly. The police officer went upstairs. The bedroom door was locked from the inside. No key. When he tried to break in, the doorknob turned by itself. 3 times. He reported this on the radio. Tensions rose. Gun drawn. He kicked in the door. The room was empty, but it wasn't clean. The wallpaper was torn, with sentences scrawled inside, as if someone had written behind on the wall. The most visible phrase said, "It's still my home." There were circular marks on the floor, as if furniture had been dragged, but nothing was out of place. It was as if someone had moved the objects and put everything back in the same place, meticulously. In the corner of the room near the wardrobe, there was a square hole, poorly patched with old boards. One of the officers touched it. It was loose. Inside, a dark, deep void, false bottom. Inside, they found bones, small, human, and an old portrait of a woman and a man. The same face as the woman who had made the connection, only younger, much younger, and the man beside her. A police officer said that it was the same to a suspect who had hanged himself years ago in a cold case. Same look, same mustache. But the case predated the house's construction. They called for backup. The woman was rescued, in a state of shock. When she emerged, she repeated only one phrase. "I locked him in there, but he never came out." Days later, the forensic examination revealed The bones in the false bottom belonged to 3 different people, 2 adults and a child. None matched any recent disappearance. One of the skeletons was that of a woman with old fractures, consistent with long-standing physical abuse. The strangest thing? The house was built in 1973, but the photo found with the bones was dated 1956, and the clothes worn by the people in the image no longer existed since the 1950s. The skeptical police tried to find a rational explanation, but the house's history revealed a curious detail. The construction was done on the foundations of another house that burned down in 1960. A family had died inside. The fire was never explained. No survivors. Since that call, the room where he was kept has remained sealed. No new residents have agreed to enter. The woman, admitted to a psychiatric clinic. She still repeats the same thing. He just wants me to stay there. He just wants to play. Like before, when I was little. And me? I still hear the doorknob click sometimes in the middle of the night. Even when my phone is off. Even when I'm at home. The sound of someone opening the bedroom door from the inside out. It was Saturday around 7 p.m. The shift was quiet, the kind of night that seems to give a false sense of security. The phone rang, and I answered automatically, never imagining that the call would stay with me until today. On the other end of the line, a boy's voice. Young man, I'm alone here. I'm scared. Immediately, my instincts kicked in. A childish, faint voice. The background noise indicated he was in a closed space, probably a slightly echoey room, but something immediately bothered me. He didn't seem crying or panicked, just too calm. I asked his name. He replied, "It's Kayo." "How old are you, Kayo?" "8. I asked for the address. He recited it without hesitation. A house in a remote neighborhood or in the old part of town. Wooden houses, narrow streets, low streetlights. I remember it because I know that area. We've had strange calls there before. I asked what was going on. He said, "My mom left a while ago. She said she'd be back soon, but I heard someone in the closet, and now I'm afraid to leave the room." I asked if there were any neighbors nearby. He said no. The house was surrounded by woods, and there was no one else around. I asked him to hold the line and called the nearest police car. They were about 15 minutes away. Meanwhile, I tried to calm him down, to keep in touch, but the more he talked, the more I felt something off. "Are you sure your mother left today? Not yesterday?" Silence. He took a while to answer. "It was today. I think." There was a scratching sound in the background, like wood being scraped, but he didn't seem to notice. "Are you listening to this?" I asked. "Yes, but he won't go out now. He's waiting until dark." My hands got cold. I asked who he was. "The man who lives here. He lives inside the mirror. And sometimes he goes out for a walk." That sentence stopped me in my tracks. I've heard a lot of strange things, but the tone he used to say it wasn't a child's fantasy. It was a warning. The patrol car arrived at the house. I reported it in real time. The officers reported that the lights were off. No movement in the windows. The front door was ajar. I asked them to call Kayo. They entered. The house was dusty, abandoned. Furniture covered with sheets, cobwebs in the corners. Upstairs, there was a room scattered with toys, but all of them were old. Dolls with glass eyes, faded children's books, a torn bear in the corner, and in the center of the room, a corded telephone. Off the hook, no line. The police searched everything, nothing. No one in the house, no sign of a child, no evidence that anyone lived there. Just a stack of old letters and a photo on top of the dresser. In the photo, a child, alone, smiling. On the back, the date, 1994, and a handwritten name, Kayo, 8 years old. The police officer called me directly from the scene. "There's no one here, man. This house has been closed for almost 30 years. There's even a foreclosure notice. No one's been in or out since the couple who owned it died in a fire. No children." I remained silent. I asked for a photo of the house to be sent to me. When I received it, I froze. It was the same address that appeared on my screen. But here's the worst part. When I went back into the system to pull up the call number, there was no record whatsoever. No number, no calls received at that time. And then the phone rang again. Same sound, same echo. I answered. Silence. Then, the same childish voice. In a whisper, he came out of the mirror. The line went dead. To this day, no one has been able to trace that connection. The house still stands there, abandoned, boarded up. But from time to time, a local resident reports seeing a child in the upstairs window, always at night, always staring, with the eyes empty, as if there was no soul left inside. Some say it's a fabrication, that imaginary children are common in old stories. But I remember the voice, I remember the silence, and most importantly, I remember the final sentence that stuck in my mind. He lives inside the mirror, and now he knows your name. I got the call at 2:18 in the morning. She was an employee at an old hotel downtown. Her voice was firm, but filled with contained nervousness. She wasn't shouting, wasn't crying, but you can sense it when someone is speaking with fear of something they don't understand. I need a patrol car here. We have a guest stuck in room 309. She's calling from the front desk, saying there's someone in the room with her, but the room should be empty. I wrote down the address, Hotel Savoy, one of the oldest in the city, built in the 1930s, with an Art Deco facade, narrow corridors, and elevators that groan as they ascend. I asked for details. The guest checked in at 7 p.m. alone. She went upstairs normally. But now she called crying, saying the man in the closet is laughing at her. Did you go up there? No. 309 has been sealed for months. We had a suicide there. The key shouldn't even be active, but it showed up in the system this afternoon, as if it had been unlocked. I sent 2 vehicles. Meanwhile, I asked the employee to hold the line. She started reporting strange things. The floor light is blinking. The elevator won't go up anymore. And room 309. It shows up in the system as 2 guests now, but only 1 person checked in. The radio at the headquarters crackled. Vehicle in the area. The police arrived and were greeted by the employee. They took the stairs because the elevator was stuck on the 2nd floor. The 3rd floor was dim. The hallway was long, with old wallpaper and a musty, damp smell. The doors were numbered, 307, 308. But where the 309 should have been, there was a poorly patched drywall. "There's no 309 here," said one of the police officers. The clerk panicked. She swore the room had been there hours before, that she had given the key, that she saw the woman entering. One of the officers walked around the corner and found a door behind a canvas curtain. It was the 309. The door was ajar. They announced their presence and entered. Silence. The room seemed frozen in time. The double bed was made. The television was off. The windows were locked. In the bathroom, the towels were folded. No sign of a struggle. But in the chair in the corner, the woman's body, sitting, eyes open, pupils dilated, mute, trembling, as if she'd seen something she couldn't describe. She was taken to the hospital in a catatonic state. To this day, she hasn't spoken a word. But that's what the police found, inside the closet that changed everything. There was writing on the interior walls, words carved with fingernails, phrases repeated thousands of times. He doesn't let anyone leave. He pretends to be the mirror. I was the first. And on the closet floor, a black and white photo of another woman, older, with a vacant look in her eyes and the same sheet used in the hotel. Behind the photo, the date, 1962. The hotel records revealed the name, Evelyn M. Torres. She had stayed in the same room and committed suicide by hanging herself with the TV cord. Her body was only found days later, when the smell filled the hallways. But here's the detail that haunts us to this day. The handwriting on the walls. It matched Evelyn's, confirmed by forensic examination. But some sentences had been written underneath other layers of paint, as if they were there even before Evelyn's death. The room was sealed, again. But a week later, a new call arrived at the center. This time, from cleaning the hotel, the same hallway, the same floor. The woman's voice on the line said, "Someone is calling me from the closet. He says he knows my name." The call dropped before I could answer. Today, whenever I see an old hotel, I think of that calling, and I wonder, how many doors just look locked? It was raining heavily that night. The kind of heavy, heavy rain that blinds the streetlights. Lightning flashed silently across the sky, and the telephone at the switchboard barely rang. And it was in this silence that the call came. An elderly woman's voice, with that characteristic tremor of someone who no longer has much strength in their vocal cords. "Good evening. Sorry to bother you, but there's a man standing in front of my house." I adjusted the headphones and adjusted the volume. "Can you tell me your name, ma'am?" "Dona Miriam. I live alone here in Jardim das Palmeiras." "He's out there, standing still, since before the rain started?" I looked at the clock. It was already past midnight. It had been raining since 9. That meant someone had been standing in front of her house for at least 3 hours. "Is he making any threats?" "No, he's just there, under the lamppost, hooded, looking at me. He's not moving." I wrote down the address and called the nearest police car. The neighborhood was quiet. Old houses, poorly lit streets. I asked her to stay on the line. "Is he near your window?" "Across the street, but he seems to know I'm here. He sees me even without moving." I asked if she knew the man. She said no. She said she tried to ignore him, thinking he was a drunk, someone lost. But he was still there, motionless, almost lifeless. While I waited for the police to arrive, I asked her to elaborate. Her voice grew strained. "He's wearing a black cape, but he doesn't look wet, not at all. And his face, I can't see it." The radio crackled. Vehicle 4 minutes away. At that moment, her voice changed. A frightened whisper. "There's someone else in here." I was out of breath. "What do you mean, ma'am? Are you alone?" I think so. But I hear breathing. In here. Here in the room." I asked her to lock herself in the room. She said she already was. But the breathing was behind her. The radio screamed in my ear. Arriving on location now. Silence on the line. Then, a sharp thud, as if the phone had dropped. The breathing grew louder, closer, and then something whispered, almost inaudible. "Now there are 2 of us." The line went dead. Police entered the residence. The front door was locked, no windows broken. The house was in order. The living room was intact. They went up to the room. They found the phone on the floor. Mrs. Miriam lay in bed, her eyes wide, her pupils dilated. No visible injuries, no signs of violence. But dead? Heart attack, according to the report. But her expression, it was pure terror. The police searched the house. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of a break-in. But one of the bedroom windows was open. And outside, in the garden, they found deep tracks in the mud. Bare feet, as if someone had stood there for hours, watching. And here's the most disturbing detail. The security camera at the house across the street captured the moment of death. The footage shows the front of Miss Miriam's house. For hours, a man stood under the lamppost, motionless. But at the exact moment she dies, the recording glitched, a blur. And when it returned, the man was gone. Forensics cleaned up the video. And what appeared frozen in a single frame was what no one expected. 2 men, one outside, the other standing behind the bedroom window. Inside the house, both with the same black cape, same height, and no visible difference between the 2, like a reflection or a duplication. The case was closed as death by natural causes. But the police officer who responded to the incident still refuses to return to that neighborhood. He told me one morning, the worst part wasn't seeing the body. It was looking in the bathroom mirror and seeing a black cape behind me, even when I was alone. Since then, whenever it's raining, I avoid looking out the window, because sometimes, what's out there, it's already in. I was about to end my shift when the phone rang. Blank screen, no number, no origin, no location data, as if the call had come from within the system, or from outside at all. To wait. 911, what's the emergency? Silence. Then, a familiar voice. Unmistakable. It was Eduardo, the call center operator, my longtime colleague. His voice was calm, deep, and he was always focused. But there was one detail. Eduardo died 8 months ago. Motorcycle accident. I was at the funeral. I laid flowers on the coffin. I saw the body. I recognized the swollen and disfigured face. But there he was, on the line. "There's something wrong here." That was all he said. His voice was weak, staticky, but it was him. "Who's speaking?" I asked. "It's me. You know who." I answered a call, and I couldn't get out anymore. The sentence hit me like a stone in the chest. My stomach turned. I remembered. Shortly before his death, Eduardo had told me about a strange calling, something that had made him feel bad, that he refused to discuss. He said, "There are calls that don't come from people. They come from places." I thought it was a metaphor, but now, there he was, talking to me, asking for help. "Where are you, Eduardo?" "That's Central." "What power plant?" Silence. Then, a background sound. Phones ringing, lots of them. The sound of hundreds of simultaneous calls. Screams, whispers, muffled cries. And then he said, "Here, there's no way out." I answered the last call, and I'm stuck. The line began to crackle. Strange sounds filtered through the channel. Voices overlapping, phrases in languages I didn't recognize. Words cut off. Fragments of real calls I'd answered myself in the past, mixed with voices that weren't human. I closed my eyes. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Why are you calling me?" The answer came firmly. "Raw. Because you're next." The line went dead. The computer screen flickered. For less than 2 seconds, something appeared. A name in the call history. My full name. My identification. As if I had called 911 myself. From the future. Since that night, everything has changed. Sometimes, when I'm alone at the center, I hear the phone ring only once. Never enough to answer, but always at the same time, 2:47 a.m. And when I look at the history, the call comes from within the exchange itself, from the branch that was used by Eduardo. The scariest thing, recently, in an old backup, I found the audio from that call. I played it back with headphones, one silent morning. In the background, amidst the distorted sounds, something whispered, "You answered, now you belong." I deleted the file, but it didn't help. Every night, at the same time, the phone rings, just once, and I know that the next call I answer, it will be the last. Some 911 calls seem simple, but they hide something much darker. Voices coming from locked rooms, children who never existed, but keep calling, hotels where mirrors don't reflect, they imprison, and hallways where someone keeps repeating your name, even when you're alone. If these stories are already disturbing, the question is, how many calls have still gone unanswered? How many voices remain trapped, waiting for the next victim? And when it's your turn to answer, would you have the courage to listen until the end? In the pinned comments, you'll find an exclusive ebook with all these stories in full. But be careful. Once you open it, you might never be able to put it down.